Okay, here we go, our orbit cut. So I'll start off by sectioning out the right side, and then I'll section out from the crown to slightly behind the ear. So on the right side, I'll begin with a slightly diagonal section. So this section will be elevated, and I'll over direct the hair slightly to encourage graduation, and also the shape that I'm cutting through my fingers is a graduated line. Okay, and the best way to execute this technique, I highly recommend that as you're cutting the right side, you're physically standing at the right side. I'm standing about at her parallel to her shoulder, which will allow me for the greatest amount of control. With the second section, I'll elevate the hair slightly higher than the first, still over directing forward. Now, with this technique, as we over direct forward, we have to ensure that every section after is also over directed to that exact same point. Okay, so from our third section here, once we hit the parietal area, from here I'll be over directing the hair to the exact same point of over direction and elevation as the second guideline. So from here on, I'll be building weight. So make sure your over direction is consistent and your elevation is consistent. A strong indicator that your over direction and elevation is consistent is where you elevate the hair to a point where your guideline is super evident, because the guideline already exists at that point and level. We just need to match it up. Okay, our fourth section is also elevated and over directed to that same point as that second section. So again, from the parietal ridge above, we're building weight. So make sure that here your fingers, elbows, shears, sections are all parallel. Just be aware of the angle of your elbow. If you have a tendency to drop your elbow, you'll start cutting concave, which is the exact opposite effect that I intend to create through the sides. Okay, so now that we move on to the opposite side, so at the left side I'll comb out a clean section, slightly diagonal. And for the left side, I changed my body position. For the left side, for the best amount of control, I'm standing up in front of the ear, and I'll comb the hair out, elevated. My over direction is consistent to the opposite side, and my elevation. So here, just after you cut in your guide, go back, refine your line, and check for symmetry and balance with both sides. So just cleaning up that line. And with curly hair, use consistent tension, because one, her hair is super thick and now it's curly, so on top of thick hair, I get even more dimension from the perm that we did. So the second section is elevated slightly higher than the first. Now this section is bigger than my finger, so I'll break it into two sections. As you're cutting, make sure that you're working with a controllable amount of hair. Don't take too much hair at one time that exceeds the length of your fingers where you're able to cut the hair cleanly. Okay, so here at our third section, we're hitting the parietal area. So from this point on, I'll be over directing and elevating the hair to the exact same point as the second section was cut at. So here I'm building weight, I'm maintaining my weight. So combing the hair clean from roots to ends, following your guideline, standing slightly in front of that ear, making visual assessments. Now our fourth section will be cut in the exact same manner. And this section again is quite large, so I'll have to break it down into smaller, more manageable sections. So again, this fourth and last section is elevated to the exact same point as that second section. Because with this technique, from the parietal area above, we're building weight, we're maintaining our weight. I want that heaviness. so now we're moving to the top portion of the haircut. I'm taking a slightly diagonal section just to allow for the way your hair naturally parts. I'll comb the hair out and I'll cut in again a graduated line that connects the length through the right side. And out here, combing the hair straight out to the same point of elevation, and I'm connecting that guideline through the left. So I'm working out 2 guidelines from each side and a consistent elevation. So at this point on the top of the head, the closest section to it on the sides is where we were building our weight. So again, I want to over direct and maintain the weight at this exact same point. So again, standing in front of what I'm cutting, be aware of your stroke count, and here my angle changes a bit. I'm building a slightly biased shape through the front. Now as you do this technique, prior to each section, just run a quick play-by-play in your mind. So a big section, I'll break that in 2, I'll over direct it to the exact same point. Hopefully I won't have to comb out this section more than 2 times. Follow a guide and hit it. So when you run a play-by-play in your mind prior to the execution, everything runs much smoother because you already have that intention set in your mind. You have a very clear aim. And for me, it's all about having a very strong intention. As I cut hair, my approach is I'm always looking for errors. I'm always troubleshooting. I'm always pushing my work to a higher level. And the easiest way to achieve this is by always looking for mistakes or finding ways to do things better. So here again, controlling your stroke count, so I'm not cutting that same section out, excessively, like 7-8 times. This is redundant and it's a waste of time. And again, the more I do the same repetitive motion, my margin of error will increase dramatically. Okay, remember, just always see a super clean guideline, because when that guideline is really clean and evident, that's the hair telling you that is the exact same point where you need to take the hair down. You'll find that if you elevate too high or too low or over direct too far to the left or too far to the right, that guideline will become really fuzzy. So that's a hair telling you you're off. So just keep on working and combing to where that guideline exists perfectly in nature. Okay, so here, just make visual assessments. So now we'll jump into the back area. So I'll be working with horizontal sections through the back. So section out the back symmetrically. With my first section, I'm elevating and I'm cutting in a square line. Now this square line organically will become graduated because the head rounds. So I just need to cut in a really clean line. And here I'm cutting clean lines. I'm not point cutting because I'm working off textured hair. I find that when you textured hair, it's already textured and it becomes a bit much, and that guideline becomes really off. Okay, so with my same technique, second section, here I'll increase my elevation. So with this technique, I'm increasing my elevation with each progressive section until I reach the occipital bone area. And then from the occipital bone area, I'll be over directing to that same point. So I'm building my weight. So I was building my weight through the parietal area on the sides and through the front. And then also I'll be building my weight at that occipital bone area. So with this third section here, it's also elevated slightly higher than the second. Make sure you're cleaning the hair super perfect from the roots to the ends. So make visual assessments. That texture is looking pretty nice. I'm getting the bevel that I want. Okay, here our section meets right at that occipital bone. So increase my elevation slightly, follow my guideline. And notice how since I'm cutting square here, the head shape organically rounds. So with that head shape will give me that angle. It'll give me that graduation, and it'll start to allow the length through the back and the length through the sides to connect. Okay, so from this point on, I'll be building my weight. So I already exceeded the occipital bone. So now I'll be combing every single section from the occipital bone to the crown to the exact same point of elevation and over direction. So combing the hair back, cutting square. Make visual assessments, and then take down the next section. So now with this section, I'll take a piece of the length to the sides. So right now I'm starting to connect my shapes. Make sure that as you're cutting the back, that your elbow is square, your fingers are square, and I prefer standing slightly to the right of the shoulder, because at that body position, it will allow me the greatest amount of control. Okay, so breaking down large sections into smaller, more manageable sections. And here, the sides are checking in. I'm still over directing to the exact same point, so here I'm still building my weight. Comb the hair super clean from roots to guideline. Fingers, elbows, shears are the same square shape. Make visual assessments. So same technique. Now notice how my section rounds, it's quite intense, but this just allows me to ensure that I'm connecting every piece from the back into the sides. But I'm still over directing back onto that exact same point. Now here, be on the lookout for any like super crazy jumpy crowns. If you see a massive cowlick, you could lighten up on your tension, or just flip to like the wider side of your cutting comb. Okay, so the left side's done. So notice that nice weight, the curls falling in nice. It bevels under organically, because that's what graduation will do. Okay, now from the right, I'll take a piece of my guideline from the left side. I'm elevating to the exact same point. So see how that hair is really clean and thick? Then I know that's the exact same point of elevation. I just need to make sure that my finger angle matches, which is it's not brain surgery, because my technique through the back here, I'm cutting square. So I just make sure that my comb, elbows, scissors, fingers, they're all square. So again, the second section is elevated to the exact same point, matching up that guideline from the opposite side. And technically when we cut hair, whenever we have two sections that meet, we'll build up a little bit of weight. So I'll go in, I'll take down some of that weight during the technical portion of the haircut. And once it's dry, I'll still have to go and soften out that weight. Okay, this third section again is elevated slightly higher than the second. Comb the hair super clean from roots to ends, cutting square. And notice how at the end of this section, the length increases. So I'm starting to go into more graduation here. But I just focus on the three-dimensional shape that I'm creating between my fingers. The head shape will fall into place naturally, so I focus on my shape. So now that I'm reaching the occipital bone, I elevate the hair slightly high, following my guideline, watching my stroke count. Body position is essential, so here I'm standing between the occipital bone and the shoulder. Okay, so here our section surpasses the occipital bone area. So from here on, I will be over directing the hair to the exact same point. Elbows, fingers, shears, all parallel. I match up my comb to the shape I intend to cut, and I just like comb the hair out and make sure that each strand of hair that you comb is parallel to the teeth of your comb, and that's a good indicator that actually your stroke count is quite brilliant. So again, over directing to the same point, taking a piece of the guideline from the opposite side with each section, and here I'm starting to build my weight. Okay, next section. Again, this section curves quite deep, but it allows me to incorporate the sides. Again, with this technical haircut, everything has to connect. So since I'm building graduation via over direction, I like standing at the same point as I cut the right side of the head, because that body position will encourage over direction, because my natural tendency to over direct to my center of balance. So again, elevating to the same point, following your guideline, breaking down a big section into smaller, more manageable sections. Okay, here for the finish, the blow dry, I'll use a ton of mousse, a bit of gel, glass, and I use a lot of product because I want to keep the curl together, and my intention is to dry the hair to a super, super, super shiny, well-defined curl. So the glass is actually there to enhance the shine and protect the hair from the heat throughout the blow dry, and it helps the hair not go too frizzy. The mousse is there to hold all the curls in place, and that gel also helps. I'll use a little bit of gel, maybe about the amount of my index nail, and just going in, just diffusing the hair. I'm not trying to touch the hair too much. I don't want it to go too frizzy. Nice, organic, natural finish. Okay, so now that the hair is dry, I'll go back and just refine my shape, texturize it. I'm aiming for a visual balance of the density and curl in the hair. So I'll start by elevating the back, and I'm just chipping into weight. If I see something that falls too excessive, I'll soften that out. And then here I go through and I'm just cleaning out the outline. So I'm cutting like a V shape, an 8 from like the nape, aiming towards the ear. I want a really clean line here, because this clean line will accentuate the curl. If my outline is kind of like textured and messy, it'll take away from the beauty of the curl. So with that clean line, it gives me a bit of contrast, and that contrast will allow that line to look cleaner, stronger, and more beautiful. And it also allows for that curl. Contrast will play off each other. A clean line is the opposite of curly hair, so they complement each other. So just going through the sides, cleaning that line, and just removing weight. I try not to touch the hair too much. And again, to the opposite side, just cleaning that line. Watch the tips of your shears, and just go back through that line as many times as you need to. Then here I'll just elevate the hair and I'll chip into the ends, because here I'm looking for a nice balance between the density and the curl. Because remember, with the technical cut, we built up a significant amount of weight. So I'm just going through and I'm just slide cutting, just breaking up that heaviness. So with the technical cut, I intentionally built a lot of heaviness, but once the hair is dry, then I can work the heaviness down. If it weren't heavy enough, I couldn't work the heaviness up. Okay, well there we have it, our orbit cut. Enjoy.